Hey, what's up, everybody? First of all, I'd like to say happy holidays. Yesterday was just Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody out there who celebrates that holiday. I do. Although when you're a parent, it's not about you anymore. It's all about the kids. So, second of all, New Year's is around the corner. And from my family to yours, I want to wish everybody a very happy New Year's and a prosperous New Year in 2023. So, I'm dropping episode 187. This one I pulled from 2 years ago. All right. I know it's old. But it's really funny that most of it is evergreen, and there's a couple of parts in it that talk about, what was going on around November 2020. Yeah, it was interesting. And the interesting part about it for me was just the mindset, then, and then rewatching it now. It's like kind of a trip because we're still sort of in that stuff. So, like I said, contextualizing this episode, Shannan Wilson is a actress. I had her on because she did a movie called Sno Babies, and it was coming out. Good movie. It's about heroin addiction and young people. I highly suggest you check it out. I will drop a link to the trailer, and I'll also drop a link to its location on Amazon Prime Video. So, like I said, we were just about getting ready to not do Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was getting canceled. So this is the time period that we're in. I make a comment around 38 minutes or a little bit before that in the video time about how I thought that, the election was just happened. So this was after the election, before Thanksgiving. What had happened was I mentioned that I felt that the media did way more colluding and meddling in the election than that Russian collusion stuff, right? And today, as we sit here right now, I was right, because the Twitter files, and just go, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up Elon Musk Twitter files. Everything you need to see will be there, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so, anyways, that's where we were. It's a good conversation, and there will be some other ones too that are from that time period, because the folder, I've got a bunch, right? I'm not going to give you everything, just because some of the content will probably not be relevant now, because we were talking about something else. There's been some one guy went back to prison, so he is, whatever he was saying, I don't know, maybe you have to discount. Two other podcasts have since gone and are no longer doing anything, and those were three podcasters that I talked to. So yeah, I don't know if you want to hear all that. So anyways, basically that's where we're at. Check out, go ahead and conquer your inner bitch, because that's really what we're all trying to do here, is conquer that voice inside of us. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's something else that keeps us from progressing or doing things that are uncomfortable. So this was from onit.com, Joe Rogan's company. So if you don't like Joe Rogan, you're probably not going to want to support his company. But I love Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's a shit. So keep rocking, my brother. So anyways, keep it 100. Stay true to yourself. Everything else is just noise. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I am your host, Sean Dustin. This evening, I am talking with Shannan Wilson, who is an actress, author, and songwriter, born and raised in Houston, Texas. There's a difference. And actually, we're here to talk about the last movie that Shannan was in, which is called Sno Babies. And that is a movie about heroin addiction that actually started out as painkillers and then turned into a heroin addiction. Mm-hmm. And you played the mother of the main character, who is Katie Kelly?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Just waiting, getting ready for the Thanksgiving that's not going to happen.
I know. It's so weird. I'm looking forward to eating
Yeah, yeah,
because, but then I've already been eating, so it's nothing new.
yeah.
Like
Right.
we've already eaten our way out. We're trying to eat our way out of this. So we're like, oh, I guess we'll eat some more and drink some more.
Yeah, definitely strange times right now. I've been crab fishing for the last week. So I've
Oh,
been on the water, outdoors. So it's been really nice.
that's nice.
Yeah, coming back to being stuck in my trailer. I live in a fifth wheel, so I'm able to
Nice.
move and go wherever I want. And I actually took it with me. My buddy brings his boat up, and I take my fifth wheel, and we just hit it for a week.
Where do you go crab fishing?
Bodega Bay, California.
A day. Okay, all right. That's so cool. I love to be on the water.
Oh
That's what
yeah,
we're planning on doing this week is fish. We're
yeah,
gonna go fishing. And
awesome.
off the Jersey Shore, yeah.
Okay, that's great, man. I love fishing.
Hmm.
You know, it's the one thing, and I think as humans, we don't experience things that are bigger than us very often
Right.
anymore. And when I go out onto the ocean, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. I mean, just one wrong move, and that's it.
Hmm.
I've been out on the water times when what are those humpback whales have breached within 50 feet of us, and yeah, I mean, like
Wow.
up, boom, almost splash water everywhere, and it's that's enough to make you realize that I'm not so big in this world.
Yeah, it almost makes you feel insignificant in a way. They're just minuscule.
Yeah.
Last summer, or I think it was a couple of winters ago, we took the boat out, and we're on Long Beach Island. It's an island off the coast of New Jersey, and it was so beautiful. It was a particularly warm day, and there were whales. Yeah, this humpback whale. The tail went up, and then there were dolphin, and it was just. And we brought my son's friend, and he still talks about it. At the time, he was 11. He's like, that was the best day ever of my entire life. I'm like, it was for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, it's really something special when you get to see what they're doing and you're like in their environment, and it's like, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's like I'm in your home, so I need to be careful of you, not the other way around. And
Yes.
so I actually have a video of that breach on my Instagram.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it
Were
was pretty
you
cool.
filming it? Were you about to just die? You were probably completely just like in awe.
Well,
Were you just
what had
frozen?
what had happened is that earlier there was a big adult that dove like right off the bow, not the bow, but the stern,
Hmm.
probably about 100 yards out, and I was like, and he went down straight up underneath us, right? And so we were jigging for rockfish, and all of a sudden, all of our lines just went and it started pulling. So his door, we were in a little 19-foot boat, and he was right underneath us, just going. It broke two of the lines, and mine, I think I had braided, so it didn't break. But I mean, that was the first. That was the first encounter that was like, oh, I don't know about this. And we just kind of, we just stayed there and we were doing our thing. And then off. So the reason why they were all out there is they were chasing a school of feeder fish. And so they were feeding. And
Okay.
so you would, how you see in the,
Yeah. So they were chasing feeder fish.
yeah, and so when you see the Discovery Channel footage of them, they're just going straight up and eating the fish and then coming back down. So that was happening off in the distance, and there was some juveniles that were right, not they were far enough away from us where I was just watching them breach and play around, and they started getting closer, and one of them disappeared, and I was filming it with my phone, and one of them disappeared, and you could actually see me like looking, stressing out, like I started to panic a little bit. I'm like, where did he go, oh my god, where's it
Where
at?
to go? Right.
And then all of a
It's like
sudden,
Jaws.
yeah, and all of a sudden I heard it, and I turned around and he just boom right next to the boat, and I was like, let's get out of here. You could hear the fear in my voice, and I'm like, let's go, we need to go now.
How far offshore were you?
We were by an island. We weren't that far off ashore, actually.
Okay.
They were pretty close in, but it was the island, like kind of like the little island that we were at. It's called Ana Nuevo, and it's down by Santa Cruz, like about an hour north of Santa Cruz.
Hmm.
And the island it was like a sanctuary for seals. So there's a route. They were just coming back and forth, back and forth, back and
Right.
forth. And so we saw those. There was dolphins. There was a great white shark that came after they left.
It was like you were in an aquarium. You were in an aquarium.
Yeah, but I mean that's awesome, man. I mean, how many people actually get to witness stuff like that? So I felt pretty special.
That is, I mean, that when you see things like that, it does feel like you just experienced something that's so rare for someone to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll just never forget it. And it's like such a thankful experience. That's cool that you got to have that.
Yeah, it is. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you and your movie. So tell me, I watched that movie, and I got to tell you, there were some scenes in there that were very realistic. As for somebody who was an addict or is an addict, I guess you would still say, because I mean, I'm not practicing, obviously, but there was one. I don't want to give away the movie, but there was one scene in there where she was just stressing out and just like looking for something to get high with, and I remember that. I remember doing that. And I did it a couple of times, and it was like, oh my God, it was so real watching that. It was a great movie, though.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so realistic. They interviewed a bunch of teenagers and just got their stories so that they could incorporate it in the film. Mm-hmm. So I was so naive to it. I didn't realize it was such an epidemic in the suburbs. And then when I started working on this, and I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, we shot it a couple of years ago, but I was like, oh my God, it was really eye-opening to me. Because when I grew up in Houston, I mean, there was definitely a lot of, I don't want to say drugs, but I mean, I guess there were drugs in my area that I grew up in. But it was acid and mushrooms and just different things like that, where now kids just can't even try something. It seems, right? Yeah. I mean, you just don't know how hardcore this stuff is, that it can just turn so quickly, especially with pills. I mean, pills are so scary.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I went from a 18 year meth habit to, I stopped doing that, and then I injured myself playing adult slow pitch softball, and they put me on Norco, and the doctor knew, like it was in my file that I was an addict, and they're like,
still gave it to you.
Yeah, they're like, well, we can give it to you, but we're just going to have to, you just have to sign this waiver saying that you're not going to sue us. And so I was like, the addict in me, I'm like, yeah, give me some pills. It's legal now.
Like, I won't sue.
Yeah, it's
so. How were you a functional meth head? I knew functional meth heads.
Yeah, yes and no. So I mean, I think I was. For me, there was the people, the tweakers that had a bunch of stuff going on all around them and never could finish anything. And me, it was the opposite. Like I would zero in on stuff. And I use the example of like Bradley Cooper in Limitless. Literally, it made me just like super focused on stuff, and I could get anything done. And so that's what I would do. I learned. I think when I got raided finally and got busted, I had $100 bill on the thing because I was counterfeiting hundreds. I would stay up literally for 3 days at a time working on something until I perfected it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You were like out of your mind.
And then but I couldn't do it if I wasn't, because my conscience would come in, and I was like, I don't want to, it just didn't seem right. So I had to be high to do it. So.
Well, crystal meth too, doesn't that affect your empathy, and you become more apathetic, right? It affects your brain in that way, to where you can kind of not have that conscience, where it changes your personality.
Yeah, it does.
I remember coming across people that I waited tables in my 20s in Denver, and it was such a shock to me. I moved out there when I was 21, and I had never experienced being around cocaine or crystal meth, even for that reason, or for that matter, and finding out that people were addicts. Mm-hmm. And it was like, whoa. I just remember the first time, I think I was 22, I went off with these, two girls that were super nice. I think they were older than me at the time. They were 28. And they were like, hey, you want to go over to so-and-so's house during our break? I'm all, sure. And then they just like bust out the cocaine. I'm like, and they go, Shannon, do you want any Coke? And I'm like, no, it's like 2:15 on a Tuesday, and I have to go back to work for my 4 o'clock shift. And then I got done. I'm like, oh my God, you guys freaking do this every day. And I wonder about those people and where they're at now. Like, I really do, especially the people that I used to know popped pills a lot and drink red wine. There were specific girls that would do that a lot. And I think, oh my God, I hope they're alive now, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the dangerous part about pills. And I would never like I said, I went from, that, and then I got addicted to the pills for about 7 years. And I went from, getting fives, like 0.5 Norco. And then when I finally stopped, I was up to 10 milligram Percocets. And
milligrams.
Yeah. And so it was, I was doing like 20 or 30 of them, which a day, which I mean is, I've heard of people, I've interviewed people that have done way more than that. But I mean, it was just one of those things that it just happened, I didn't want it to, and it just did. And I ended up having to, when I finally stopped, I mean, it's like, dude, I've been through so many rehabs. I'm not going to go to rehab again. Like, I know all the lingo. I can go in there and just,
You're smart enough so you can figure it out.
Yeah. And so what I did is I just did just half the dose every week until I could wean myself off of it.
That's smart.
And then I used, edible marijuana to kill the rest of I still felt the discomfort of the withdrawal, but it made it manageable for me.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think, if my kids got injured, I would never put them on any sort of pain medication that way. Any sort of Vicodin, because since doing Sno Babies, I've heard so many stories of star athletes getting a field. One girl was on her way to Notre Dame. She was a junior playing, was heading to Notre Dame when she graduated for field hockey, got injured, and became a heroin addict, and was down on Kensington Avenue where a lot of this film was shot, and ended up ODing. The mom had to go fetch her off of the street, which is the epicenter of the heroin problem in our country. And this is a 16-year-old girl, and that was from a field hockey injury. So I think doctors know better now, but they can still get it's prescribed. I had surgery last month and I had a lot of pills prescribed to me. I mean, not a lot, but
yeah.
If I had a problem, and people with problems aren't going to necessarily say they have a problem just so they can get it.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's,
right?
It's not I agree with you. I do think that since it's become such a huge deal that doctors definitely are afraid to prescribe it now.
Right.
And, it was to the point, I think the reason why I had stopped was, one, I was going to do this podcast and I was like, all right, well, I can't be talking to people about addiction and all this other stuff when I'm sitting here, still popping pills. And so that was one of the main reasons why. And then another one is that they gave me the option because they drug tested me and it was in my system, but there was also marijuana in my system too. And they're like, well, you're going to have to choose one or the other. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll choose the one that's better for me.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me weigh these.
Yeah.
Of course what did you think of the scene when, Katie Kelly was the lead actress? She plays my daughter during the scene with the police officer when she was patting her down and giving her the urine test. I know that was my friend Jimba that was in that scene. The actress, she's an actual Philly cop.
Oh, really?
In the one scene, where she was like against the wall, Kristen McCusker. So she's so scary in it because she was a 15-year veteran of the Philadelphia Police Department.
Yeah, that was they did it. They built it up, and I could feel the tension, and the nervousness and the first time that happens to you, even as a guy, the first time when you ever experience having to dress down, squat, cough, be naked in front of everybody, and she was by herself. When you're literally unless you get arrested by yourself, but usually you're like within a group and you're all just naked right in front of each other doing that. So
that's what Gemma said.
Yeah, it's very degrading. It's humiliating. There's just so many things that are wrong with that. And for people that are already traumatized from whatever it is, the reason why they're using. And my biggest thing now, since having gone through all of that, is I think the number one public safety issue should be untreated trauma, because that's what spurs all of the problems. When you're running around having all of these traumatic events in your life that have happened to you, and you've got nowhere to go with them, and you just try to self-medicate and just wish it away, but the problem isn't, the problem is within you, not anywhere else. And you have to come to terms with whatever traumatic events in your life that have happened. I mean, I can't speak to, rape or any of those other things, but I mean, I can't imagine like a woman having to go through that, and right. I believe that there was a traumatic event that happened in that movie as well, that kind of spurred that on.
Yes.
And I don't think that's more common than I think people understand.
We want the film. We wanted to be respectful of people who have gone through trauma, like you said, not have a stigma to it, not to blame the mother or the parents or the drug addict, and just to know that it can happen to anybody at any time. And that was the message of the film. And to show that there's hope at the end too. Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue is really involved with it, and Alan Kovac, who managed Motley Crue, who's seen so many drug addicts because he's been in the music industry for so long, bought the film. So they just did a really great job of supporting us and wanting the original movie at the end was so horribly sad that it just ended that way. And the focus groups were so devastated. They wanted us to add another ending so that it showed some hope at the end. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got me.
I was crying. I was crying at the end too, and that was my scene. But yeah, you're like, this is so sad, and it is. It's heartbreaking. But there were quite a few families that came on set as extras, especially at the end. They wanted to be there to support the film, and that was really hard to do a scene in front of them, acting out what they've actually experienced. That was really challenging. You don't want to do a disservice to a mother who's actually buried her son. So that was challenging.
Yeah. And there was a twist too, because it didn't, like, I thought for sure it was going to go a different way, and it didn't. And I mean, that's addiction. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got it perfect, because
thank you.
You can't script it, what you think is going to happen, or maybe you think you beat it, but you haven't dealt with the issues. They don't go away.
No,
they just
spiral. Yeah.
They don't go away. And when you take the substances away, it comes out in different areas. Like for me, I stopped doing meth, and I never really dealt with any of the other things, like the behaviors, the attitudes, everything else that goes along with it. And it just started coming out in different areas, like in anger. Like when I play softball, somebody would set me off and I would try to fight everyone. And, but that's just how it's still untreated. I've still haven't dealt with it. And so it would just spill out, when in the least, just in times when it was not
you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't convenient for me or anyone else around me.
You were kind of a hothead. They're like, that dude's a little intense.
Yeah, they're like, don't pick him on your team.
You put him on the slow pitch softball team.
Yeah.
Luckily, Sean got injured, so he's not going to be here next week.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it's just, addiction is crazy, man. And there's no one size fits all to any of it. I mean, and there's no one size fits all to anything in life, because we all are different and we're all built differently. Underneath, we're all biologically the same. We're have the same, functions and everything else, but how we're
Right.
raised and how, different things that we have. Like I use the analogy a lot is like we're like a hard drive in a computer. And every time we experience a trauma, a fragment goes out, right? And so at some
Hmm.
point throughout your life, you have so many of these fragments that go out, 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 out. And what happens to a hard drive in a computer when it's all fragged up like that? It doesn't run right.
Stops working.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
stops working, doesn't run right. It misplaces files and does
Slow.
all, yeah. And so you have to reset. And that's what, dealing with your untreated trauma is it's a hard reset.
That's my biggest fear with my kids is drugs. My dad's sister was addicted to drugs, and she still struggles with it. And you burn every bridge. By the time you're 62 or 63, I mean, you've been involved in things since you were 14. You pretty much burn out on that. You just burn things, burn everyone, and nobody's at that point. Everybody's just done helping, and that's the sad part too, because kind of left to their own devices. They just are left out there on their own. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tricky. That's a tricky thing too, and
Well, there's a lot of different takes on it. I mean, there's a guy that I listen to. His name's Johan Hari, and he's really good when he talks about addiction. And he says the opposite of addiction is connection. And so what we normally think would, tough love, well, that's not connection. That's more
Yeah.
of the like I guess the punitive way that we deal with addicts now. I mean, Jesus, how many addicts are sitting in prison, because they are just drug addicts, and they just get caught up. I mean, I was talking to a bunch of people, well, not a bunch, but about 10 people that are in federal prison right now out of the Northern District of Texas, which is Dallas, Fort Worth. And they get caught up in these conspiracy charges and cases and stuff like that. And, they're getting handed like 25, 30, 40 years, some of them even life sentences. And I asked every single one of them, I said, so, I mean, this isn't the first time you've been in trouble, the first time you've been in prison. I said, when you first got in trouble for drug charges, were you ever offered like rehab or any kind of rehabilitation or like counseling or anything like that through the courts? And they all said no. And in California, I mean, Jesus, drug diversion's the first thing you do. I mean, you get so many chances in California. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
But you don't get that in Texas.
no.
And that's where my family is in Texas. But it's not even a tough love approach, because everybody was always, and I'm not specifically talking about my aunt, but just in general, it's just tough because she tried to give me drugs when I was young to party with, and just unacceptable, to give that to your niece or try to get her to do things too. And, but it's just the stealing and then the lying and then it's just over and over and over again. And that's so tough, because I can see why as a parent, you don't want to do a tough love or kick your kid out or cut them off. I mean, how tragic and horrible it is for everybody involved. It's so sad. And so that's why I think that's my big fear with my kids, is them to try something and get addicted. So I'm very much into, especially since doing Sno Babies, very much into lecturing them about stuff, not trying anything. Don't try any pills. Don't try it. You know what's in it. It could be bleach.
Yeah.
You'll be selling yourself on the streets. Like, I'm super hardcore about it. My son's like, what?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, what are you watching?
I know. I told him that not too long ago. I'm like, and then you'll be selling yourself on the streets. He goes, God, you're so weird. I'm like, I know I'm taking it above and beyond. I just really don't want you to do any drugs.
Yeah. That's crazy. But so you just sparked a memory here. Do you know the first person that gave me meth was my dad's new wife's sister, who was like 15 years older than me. So I was a freshman in high school, and
That'll be us.
yeah, and I knew where to go to get it. My friends had started doing it, but they wouldn't give it to me because they didn't want to be the one to start me on it. And because I was the youngest one in the group. And so I'm like, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, I know where I can go. I know who's got it. And sure enough, she gave it to me.
Yeah, there's always that one person. That's just sociopathic to give a kid crystal meth or drugs. I mean, what kind of state of mind are you in that you want to party that hard that you're like, oh, okay, I'll party with this 15-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. Well, misery
When I'm
loves
30.
company. Yeah. Misery
That's
loves
true.
company. I mean, and that was a crazy thing too. Is that every time I'd be around, like, you go to these different places and different houses, and these people that are hanging out in, like,
They're always shady.
yeah, it was always shady, man. And like half the time I was like, God, what are you doing here? Like, you don't belong here.
Yeah, I remember being in situations where I was always able to hang out with everybody, and I was always kind of wasn't a goody-goody, but I could hang out with the wild crowd. I could hang out with the nerdy crowd. I played sports, but I could always be in whatever crowd I was in. So I was never really judgmental. I was never like, oh my God. So I saw a lot, and I was in places where there was a lot happening. And, but there were times where, I'd be like, hey, I'll try something. And there was always the people that really knew what was best.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, this is not for you. You don't want to be like this. Don't you appreciate those people? Like, those are the what is it? The good Samaritan drug addicts.
Yeah, right.
They're like, you don't want to be like me. Plus, It's more for me. I'm not going to share. It's probably more what it's about. But
yeah. Right.
I remember times where there's one particular girl. She was older than me, and she was like, you don't want to do this shit. Like, you don't want to touch it. And I was like, you're right. I really don't. I don't. And I appreciate that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how you have memories like that in your head of different past experiences, how they just flash in your head, right?
Yeah. It's when people see more in you than you see in yourself, and they don't want, like, it's almost like they see your potential, and they know that they've wrecked theirs, and they don't want you to have to experience the same thing. So that's
they're looking out for you.
Yeah. Those are cool people. Unfortunately, too bad that they were struggling themselves, but hopefully they found their way through.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So what else? You did this movie. You've done how many other ones have you done?
I've done a few. This year's been good. A year and a half. I did one feature. I can't really talk about it. They made me sign an NDA, but I enjoyed that. And that's another movie about, what can I say? It takes place in Philadelphia, and it has to do with drugs and the inner city. So it's a fantastic script, and I'm really, really proud to be a part of it. So I can't wait till that comes out. And then we have another film, Finding Christmas, coming out. We'll start shooting in December, and that's a Christmas movie. Okay. I get to play a South Philly, like a woman who's married to the mob boss. Okay. So I get to have the Adriana hair and the whole thing. So it's a different kind of character for me, and I'm looking forward to play somebody different like that.
So you didn't start out as an actress, right? You were. I read your IMDb, and you did something for like 14 years. You were in. You started a business.
Yep. So I used to live in California in Hermosa Beach.
Okay.
Just for a couple of years, and I started. You're so poor out there in LA. I didn't go out there for acting. I just went out there to see if I could model, do runway, do some commercials. I wanted to experience it because I knew I was about to get married, and I've always wanted to go to LA. It's hard. It's hard out there, man. I was so poor. So I would do promotional jobs where you pass out somebody's like, hey, you can pass out products and get paid hourly. It's extra money for marketing companies. So I learned about that. And so when I moved out to New Jersey, I started my own promotional staffing company and ended up having it for 14 years and staffing nationwide for Verizon and Unilever. And I had quite a few employees, hundreds of staff. And I did that for a long time. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that acting is a little bit more fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, I love business, and I'm very business minded. So I always wanted to have my own company. that was one of my goals. And so I'm actually that's probably one of the most proud things I am of, is that I started a company and did so well with it. That's something yeah. And acting is fulfilling in a creative way. I get to work with just other creative people. I'm not around anybody I mean, there are creative people here, but I'm in the suburbs I'm outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey, in this little town. It's very type A people who love to talk about where they went to college. I went to this small little college in Texas. I never ever felt insecure about that till I moved to the East Coast, and I'm like, what the F? I'm like, why do they're asking me where I went to college so that they can then say, you know, I went to Cornell. When I was at Princeton running track.
you're being shamed.
To beat up. Yes, I'm like, you're like university shaming me.
Higher education shaming.
Yes, it's true. I'm going to start everybody's protesting things right now. I'm going to protest that. So it's nice to be around creative, you know, people that don't really care where you went to college.
Yeah. That's cool. I was a drama nerd in high school. Before I got in trouble, part of the reason is that when you have electives, I chose when I was a freshman, I chose all of my electives as theater, combat theater, like stage, all this, musical theater, all these things. I've been in a couple of different productions. And then, once I got out of my first drug rehab, my first job was building sets for a professional, theater company.
Oh, wow. I think that was fun.
Yeah, that was cool. I got to work the lights. I got to do all the stuff back, you know, behind the scenes when the productions actually happened. I was an extra in one of them too. So it was cool. I never did anything with it though.
Well, that's something you could always go back to. I'm always, the crew guys are always so great, and girls. There's lots of, you know, it's both. They just know what they're doing, and everybody has their job. That's it's almost like a military thing where everybody's got their specific job and nobody crosses one another's job. One another's job. So there's no confusion as to what everybody's doing. I like that. It's very organized. If you're on a good set, and for the most part, I've done some student films but even those were for NYU, because I had nothing on my reel. When I started auditioning, I did not have anything to show casting directors that I could even act. But my manager, Georgianne at CPM Talent, believed in me, and I slowly chipped away, did free work on student films, and just booked little things along the way. So I've been I don't know what my point was, but I've been pretty lucky on sets with some good crew.
Yeah, that's cool. You didn't have to go the whole the acting school route and all that.
No, I probably should have. But I did take acting classes. I did do that in LA.
Yeah. I think everybody that goes to LA does.
LA was so funny because you'd be in Coffee Bean, of course, and I'm scrounging together my change to be able to afford my coffee. And there would be like the most gorgeous guy ever. And I'm like, oh my God, he must be somebody. And then I would leave at the same time as this guy, and he would have to crawl in through his passenger side to get into his car because the driver's side door didn't open. Because it was stuck for some reason. And he's like, driving away. You're like, you looked just like Brad Pitt. That's crazy. So that was really interesting in California to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. California is something else, man. It's, I love it and I hate it at the same time. I love the weather here. I love the weather here, but I mean, everything is a fee. There's a fee for everything. You sneeze wrong, there's a fee. You know, it's so expensive.
It is. That's why everybody's moving to Texas.
Yeah.
Californians remember a while they were all coming to Colorado.
Yeah.
Everybody was leaving to go to Colorado. Colorado got so packed. But now they're all heading to Austin. Yeah,
they're going to Austin, but they're trying to this is what I hear from people is that the problem with the people that come from California is they leave California because they hate everything that's happening here. But the minute they touch down wherever they're at, they want to continue doing.
create
They want to continue to create the
their
same,
environment.
the environment that they just left.
They're like overbuilding in Austin. You're like, stop. It was this beautiful like grassland and plains and hill country, and they're just coming in. And then suddenly there's this river in Austin, the Guadalupe River, where you literally float in inner tubes, and it's just redneck Riviera. It's awesome. And all of these wealthy people have moved along this river and don't want that happening anymore. You know, you're like, forget you. This is what we've been doing. These people, right, since the 70s or 60s. And then they move in and they're like dictating how they want the river being handled in this. I totally hear you. That's so true.
Yeah. You assimilate to us, not us to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably one of the most annoying things. And I thought about it. If I didn't have my daughter who's 3, I'd be gone. I'd be out of here. But I got to stick around for her.
Yeah, and it's pretty where you live. You're in a pretty area.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm pretty lucky. Where I have my trailer at is like my backyard is literally like 50 yards away up over the levee is the Sacramento River.
Oh.
And so
that's beautiful.
Yeah, right. Like between May and August, all the kiteboarders come or kite surfers come, and they're just all over the place out here because right behind that is a bunch of windmills. So the wind tunnel comes right through here, which sucks.
Wow.
Yeah. Which sucks when it's really windy because it's literally shakes you to sleep in a fifth wheel, but it's cool to go out there when I take my jet skis out and go and film them and do all kinds of other stuff out there with them.
Oh, I wish there was more nature out here like that in South Jersey. I miss that. Out west is so cool that way. It's out here too, but it's different.
Yeah.
I miss that you can just go outside like that and just go on a really long bike ride. And
yeah.
Just have space. Everything's very close. We're all very close to one another where I'm at.
Yeah, I've never been to the East Coast. I like when you know that movie Billions, or not the movie, the series Billions. And you know, the beginning of it where it's got the drone footage and it's showing Manhattan. I think that's what dude, it's so dense there.
So you've never seen New York City? You've never been out here? A lot of people from out here don't go out west either. They don't go to California. It's interesting. You guys don't go back and forth. But New York, you should have. I guess when this is all over, just come check it out. Although New York is not the same right now. I worked in Brooklyn last week on something, and New York is all boarded up. It's so sad. It's crazy to see a city like that just completely boarded up and just shut down. It's just
well, Cuomo's about to get an Emmy.
Cuomo. Nobody likes De Blasio.
Yeah.
Nobody's liked De Blasio. I don't know liberals or conservatives that like De Blasio. And that city's been falling apart in the last few years, I feel. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm an alternative media guy. I don't follow mainstream at all. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch any of that crap.
That's good.
And you know, the people that I'm listening to are just independent journalists that I know are just reporting the news in an unbiased way.
No opinion.
Yeah, no opinion. And it's like, you know, a lot of them are like, dude, I don't like Trump, but, you know, this is what's happening.
The facts.
Yeah, you know.
That's like the BBC. I try to read a lot of the BBC over anything else because you're getting something. You're like, I just literally want to know the facts.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, it's factual. I'm getting it. Oh, wow, you just inserted an opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, you just inserted an opinion. Now I just want and then you're back to, so I feel like you should text me what you read because we want to stay informed, but I don't need subliminal messages to get them to make me think what they want me to think.
Yeah. You know, it's a really good one is Whitney Webb. And she has a podcast or a blog called The Unrelentless Pursuit of the Truth. And she dives deep, like does research. James Corbett's another one. You can go to corbettreport.com and everything that he puts on there, he puts where he got the information from.
And fact checked. So
you can go and fact check him. Read it for yourself. Because a lot of this stuff is public knowledge, you know, but the mainstream media doesn't report it. You know, they spin it.
No, no, but not on others. Huh?
They spin it the way that they need their agenda to play out.
Exactly. Not on either side. One's just as bad as the other.
Yeah.
Um, it's just unbelievable how that happens.
Yeah, I told somebody, I said, you know what, the mainstream media has done more meddling in this election than the Russians ever could have.
Just the media in general. That's why I like to watch The Bachelorette.
I used to watch that when I had a girlfriend.
My husband and I love to watch it. It's like a family night. It's Tuesday night tonight. Let me tell you, my family's going to be watching The Bachelorette later. And the kissing sounds are very uncomfortable. We mute those. And my kids are like, oh my God, it's so gross.
Well, I mean, the one thing about The Bachelorette that I always said something about was, why is it okay for them to like go and kiss on all these other people and do whatever it is, but we can't? It's like speed.
Oh, COVID.
Well, no, not because of COVID, but you literally have
In
like
general.
one woman like going and making out with like 5 other dudes within the course of, you know, I mean,
I know,
that's
it's so gross.
but that's dating. That's dating. That's what dating is, you know, but you just don't see it like that. You know, you don't talk.
I don't think you see it with. Yeah, well, I think it's funny, even with a guy or with a girl, they have a conversation. She's like, okay, tell me about yourself. And then he tells him about it, and then they immediately start kissing. And then she's like, okay, bye. And then the next guy comes in, and then she kisses him. This one particular girl, she has kissed every single guy within like 10 minutes. I mean, she's the kissing bandit. I mean, they're all very good looking. So it's just suave. They're exchanging a lot of spit, though, I must say.
I guess that's just what hot people do when they get together. They just want to kiss.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. Back when I was younger, maybe. As I get older.
When you were a hot younger guy, you just.
Yeah, these days.
As we all get older.
Yeah, these days, what I look at doesn't look back.
No, let me tell you, I'm getting up there. It's like I start noticing different things about myself. You're like, oh God, when does this happen? And I feel like so I'm working on a Netflix show, and we shot one day in March, on March 12th. And then it shut down. So I've been back to shooting it, and I'm like, it's going to be so clear when I shot in March, because just between the stress and the anxiety and the election and just everything that we've experienced since March, I'm sure we all are just going to look. You're going to be able to tell which the actors that did it before and after, because we're all going to look very much older.
Yeah. Minutes. So, do you want to plug anything or got any burning desires you want to talk about?
Yeah, my burning desire is to get back to The Bachelorette. No, thank you. No, this has just been fun, and I'd love to come back and be able to talk about some of the other stuff I have coming down the pike, and just it's a good conversation. Fishing. Next time I talk to you, I'll let you know if we catch any fish.
Yeah, what are you going for?
What are they called?
Striped bass.
Not striped bass.
Sturgeon.
It's, sturgeon.
Oh, those are good.
Sturgeon.
Have you eaten sturgeon?
No, because my husband hasn't caught any yet.
They're hard to catch.
Last 2 weekends. That's what he said. They're hard, and we have a Grady White. We have a 25-foot Grady White that we.
Jealous.
So we love it. It's older, and we've thought about getting a different boat, but we love it so much because it's so quiet. The engine's off the back, and it's just such a quiet, great boat. And our kids are like, this is not that they're spoiled, but we're just surrounded by some really nice boats that are like newer, and we're like, this boat's awesome. We're keeping this boat for the next 25 years, because that's all you need. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The seats are unraveling, but it just runs so well. I can't fathom buying anything we just like to use everything to death.
Yeah. Well,
great. My Lexus has 260,000 miles on it.
Good for you.
I know.
Yeah, Grady Whites are nice, man. I like the way that they're set up and how they have the cabin and the back. The way the back is it's kind of a flat back, whereas there's a lot of room in the to move around in the back part to fish and do all that.
And it's quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't smell. It's like it's so smooth on the water. So, but being out on the water, that's what makes me happy too. I mean, it just takes away a lot of pressure, and it just changes. That's why people spend a fortune to live by the water, with ocean views and bay. I like the bay though. As I've gotten older, I prefer the bay more than the ocean. Well,
the ocean, the saltwater air and everything else is really hard on everything around it. So I wouldn't want to live on the ocean, because then you're having to spend so much on maintaining everything that you have around it to be able to live by the ocean. The bay and maybe the rivers, big river, nice river, those are always a little nicer, I think.
You're right. The elements on the ocean. Our buddies bought a big house on the ocean last year. Our good friends, and he's just like, God, everything's just rusting. We're hanging out by his pool, and he goes, oh, it's just like falling apart. It's just 1 year because New Jersey, it's tough. I mean, East Coast weather is harsh, and he's just he just is noticing all his house. It was so spanking new a year ago, and just one winter so you're exactly right.
Yeah, I was telling my buddy who went with us, his 14-year-old son came up, and you don't think about stuff when you're 14, and he's saying, I want to get this and I want to get that, and I'm like, all right, well, first of all, I mean, it's one thing to be able to afford the insurance and the payment, but what people don't really factor in is all the maintenance that goes along with it. And so if you can't afford the whole package, and don't even bother, because you're going to end up with a piece of junk that you can't fix.
Right. It's just going to be sitting when your Honda engine gets broken, and it's $4,000 to fix it, which is what happened to us last year. Oh. Because there's one guy that works on Honda engines. One guy. He's 45 minutes away. He knows his Honda engine. He only works on Hondas.
Well, that's good, because at least he's he's perfect at that.
Yeah, he's the guy that you need. And we just have one. Yeah. I can't believe these boats now that have like 1,000 horsepower.
200. Yeah.
Like, just unbelievable. You're like, just to Atlantic City in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I went out on one. So I go the last 2 years. No, not last year, but 2 years prior to that, I'd gone to Kodiak, Alaska fishing for like 3 days. And the boat that we went on there, it had three 300. So it's got 9. But I mean, you're out there, you do your thing, and bam, you're right back.
Great, right?
Yeah. So if you're somebody who's paying for a charter, and because you spend all day out on the water, man, when you're done, it's like, I want to get out of here. You
just want to make it there. And if you're not paying for the gas, I mean, if you can afford it, and they can afford to, $1,000 to fill up their tank each time. Those people that have those boats, they're fine with the gas. They don't care. Yeah.
Well, like you see a lot of those in in the Keys in Florida. Where they do there's this one, it's a tuna, my buddy told me it's some tuna fishing deal, and all the old timers, they all have the slow boats that take them forever to get out, and they all stay out on the water. And there's the one guy who's a new dude, and he's got the one that has the 1,000 horsepower. So he gets out there and he can come home every night. And so they're always talking mess about him. I can't remember what the name of it is, but I could see that. That'd be pretty annoying.
Oh my God. Yeah, he probably has like an Intrepid or something. One of those fancy boats. Yeah. Yeah. And then he's like, I'm back in. Woo, I'm ready, for my afternoon coffee. Well, thank you. I know I kept you an additional amount of time, but we had to talk boats.
Yeah, we got to talk fishing. I mean, how often do you get to talk fishing with a woman?
That's true.
So yeah, for sure. Anything you got coming out, just shoot me an email, and we'll set up another time and do it again.
All right. It was so nice to talk to you, Sean. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too. I forgot it was even Thanksgiving.
I know.
You've been listening to the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Sean is a single dad, a union blue-collar guy, and he spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. When he was released from prison in 2006, all he had was the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and some paperwork. Since then, he's turned his life around and shares the struggles and successes on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you were moved. To connect to the show, book a guest spot. For merch, Patreon, PayPal, and social media links, go to linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. On Instagram at nowhere to go but up now. On Twitter at but up now. On the YouTube channel at nowhere to go but up podcast. See you next time.